Now let me introduce how to connect the SIYI MK32 to our drone video transmission system. Using our radio link, the MK32 ground station can establish a wireless connection with the drone's flight controller, ensuring stable operation. This provides strong interference resistance and long-range transmission capability. Our radio link supports bidirectional transmission. The downlink transmits video and telemetry, while the uplink sends control commands to the drone. The hardware can be divided into the following parts. First, on the aircraft side, we have the wireless link air unit. In addition to the ground unit of our drone video data wireless radio link. Here is the original SIYI flight terminal module. Now it is used on the ground side. It is connected to our radio link ground unit using a wired connection. Next, we have the SIYI MK32 ground station. The wireless connection can be set up according to the standard configuration of your ground station. Now, let's take a closer look at the wired connection. First, the radio link ground unit and the MK32 transmitter module each require a separate 12 volts power supply to operate. Other than the power supply, you just need to connect the video Ethernet ports, data serial ports, and SBUS between the two units. On the MK32, the SBUS serves as the transmitting end. On the ground side, the units serve as the receiving end. So, the MK32 only needs to connect its SBUS TX to the ARCs on the ground unit for one-way operation. This is the white cable we use for the connection. For the serial port, the ground station of our link outputs via RS-232. So we need to add an RS-232 to TTL converter module. Using this RS-232 to TTL converter, we connect the ground station to the MK32 transmitter module's TTL serial port. For the Ethernet connection, simply follow the standard protocol, matching the transmit and receive pins. Additionally, the RS-232 to TTL converter module requires a 5 volts power supply. This is the 12V to 5V power module that supplies 5 volts to the RS-232 to TTL converter. For the remaining transmit and receive connections, just follow the predefined wiring on each module. Also, make sure that each interface's ground is properly connected. Now that the hardware is connected, let's move on to the software setup. To start, we first configure the IP address. Here, it's important to pay attention to the IP addresses of the SIYI MK32 ground station, its airborne module, and the drone camera. These three IP addresses must be on the same subnet for the system to operate correctly. Let's begin by taking a look at the IP address of the MK32 ground station. According to the SIYI manual, set the IP addresses of both the ground station and the airborne module to the 192.168.144 subnet. We also need to ensure that the drone camera's IP is set to the same 192.168.144 subnet. Now, let's move on to the second part, the data transmission settings. Now, click to enter the data transmission settings. Here, in the data transmission settings, the first key point is to set the connection type to UDP. The second key point is to set the serial port baud rate to 57,600. This baud rate setting ensures proper matching with the flight controller and the ground station's wired connection to the SIYI transmitter module. It's important to keep the baud rate consistent across all ports. Now, let's move on to the third part, some configuration settings in the QGC ground station software. First, let's go over the connection settings in QGC. Here, in the connection settings, there are a few key points to be aware of. The first point to note is the connection type, which is set to UDP by default. The next point is to set the port number and the server address of the remote server. All of these settings are configured strictly according to the SIYI MK32 manual. The server address is actually the IP of the remote flight end, that is, the SIYI airborne module. According to the SIYI manual, the server address should also be set to the 192.168.144 subnet. It is set to 12 this IP. Finally, let's move on to the video streaming configuration in QGC. This setup allows the camera's video feed to be transmitted and displayed in QGC. Here, the key point to note is the RT-ESP URL for the video stream. Here, the IP fields must be entered exactly as specified by the camera manufacturer. Checking each part carefully, no characters can be missing and there should be no spaces. It's important that the entire field is filled out completely.